Hello, I'd like to introduce the NYSIF website to you for Housing Court. To get to the housing site, you're going to start by going to our website. It's www.nycourts.gov/e-file. NYSIF is a web-based system. To access it, you simply just need a web browser, you need an internet connection, and a username and password we'll get into in a minute. Filing documents is very simple. We'll see that during the demonstration. The demo will also include how to file your documents and how to look at an e-filed case. So just to talk about NYSIF very simply, we're going to just jump over to the administrative orders under rules and legislation we have. Okay, and there's a few sections here we're going to jump to. The first is the administrative order. It's not here yet. This is where it's going to be once it's signed. But essentially, an administrative order is signed by Judge Marks, administrative judge, chief administrative judge, authorizing electronic filing in New York County. So we anticipate that New York County Housing Court will go live and begin to accept Housing Court filings for all case types in Housing Court starting July 13th, and it's for all case types. So that's holdovers, non-payments, illegal lockouts, HP, and 7A proceedings. So the administrative order, you can anticipate that at least by that day or the day before, the administrative order will be here, and that's the authorization that e-filing can be commenced in New York County Housing Court. E-filing will be on a consensual basis. Okay, consensual basically opposed to mandatory. For those who are familiar with the difference in Supreme Court, we have consensual filing, meaning that the case may be commenced electronically. Parties are not obligated to electronically file. They're not obligated to commence electronically, and they're not obligated to participate as far as being a respondent electronically. And just to put it out there right now, because I know Housing Court is very heavy in pro se attendance, that no pro se under any obligation, whether it be consensual or mandatory, they do not have to electronically file in any way. So anything that we go over today, or anything you hear about electronic filing going forward, where you hear consensual or mandatory, just know that the exception to this rule are those who are self-represented. So that's basically the difference between consensual and mandatory. Mandatory, the case must be commenced electronically, and if you're an attorney representing a defendant or a respondent, you must participate electronically unless there was some sort of exception that we don't have to go over because Housing Court's not going mandatory. There's another section here, the uniform rules for the trial courts. This is where the uniform rules for civil court will be displayed once they're promulgated. What I'm going to do now is just show you the rules as they are as a draft. They're not promulgated yet. However, we're just going to go over them just to review some of the differences of how Housing Court procedure will be, or the rules as they will be as it applies to electronic filed cases. So this is a draft of the administrative order for the rules. Going down, electronic filing, very simply, on consent, like we mentioned, documents may be filed and served by electronic means in the New York City Civil Court in such actions and in such counties that as shall be authorized by the chief administrator of the courts. So essentially, an administrative judge through the administrative order will authorize when a court and which case types will be allowed for electronic filing. Only to the extent and manner provided in this section, except for no-fault litigation. So no-fault is authorized for mandatory e-filing. However, that case type has not been authorized yet for activated yet in the civil court. Except as otherwise provided in this section, okay, the 202.5B and section 202.5BB, where applicable, shall apply to all actions in which electronic filing is authorized in the civil court. basically 202.5B and 202.5BB are the consensual and mandatory rules for electronic filing. They're also available. They're right here under the uniform rules. Really, you're just going to stick to 202.5B, and there's only a few sections that make reference to, in this section, that make reference to that. But basically, anywhere in these rules that you would see that it says Chief Clerk of the Supreme Court or Clerk of the Court, just to understand that that's the Chief Clerk of the Civil Court. And any references in the section as the CPLR shall be deemed to include, wherever it's relevant, the New York City Civil Court Act and the RPAPL. So basically, these rules should be read in conjunction with the rules 202.5B, 202.5BB, and the CPLR and the RPAPL. Commencing an action by electronic means. Except as otherwise provided in subdivision A of this section, a party may commence any action in the civil court in any county, provided that e-filing has been authorized, right? That's that administrative order we've been talking about, in that county and in the class of actions to which that action belongs pursuant to subdivision A of this section. So it's not only the court that gets authorized for e-filing, but it's also the case types. And that these cases may be commenced by electronically filing the initiating documents with the clerk of the court through the NYSEF site. And of course, filing according to the CPLR always includes the filing and the fee if required. And fees are paid electronically as well, and we'll show you that. Documents that are electronically filed to commence an action in compliance with this section shall be deemed filed with the clerk of the civil court in the county in which the action is brought for the purposes of Section 400 of the Civil Court Act upon the date of receipt of those documents by the NYSEF site, together with the payment of any required fee. So when these documents get uploaded and when the fee is paid, that is when the documents are considered filed, not when the index number is assigned, not when someone enters it into their case, the clerk enters it into their case management system. It's in fact the combination of filing these documents and paying the fee. So as far as the clerk's responsibility, no later than the close of business on the business day or close of business or the business day following the date on which the initiating documents are electronically filed to commence an action pursuant to this subdivision, a confirmation notice shall be transmitted electronically through the NYSEF site to the person filing such documents with the index number assigned, okay? The notice shall have the index number on it, and the clerk will affix the signature of the chief clerk. This notice will satisfy the requirement of Section 401 of the Civil Court Act that the clerk return a copy to the party for filing.
Bill,
back to the party.
Can I get Skype on? Skype a bit.
Okay. Where a summary proceeding under Article 7A of the RPAPL and involving residential properties commenced electronically, NYSEF shall provide the petitioner with the option, in lieu of submitting a stamped postcard containing the written notice required in Section 208.42I of the rules, of having the clerk of the court mail such notice to the respondent, or, if there be more than one respondent, to all of them. If the petitioner selects this option, the clerk shall charge the petitioner the cost of the postage and processing fee. So this is a big difference between what's happening right now with paper and what's going to be happening electronically. Essentially, when the affidavit of service comes back to the clerk, it's accompanied by a postcard. The postcard is taken off the affidavit of service. It's mailed out to the respondents, right? In NYSEF, because there's no transmittal of paper, once the affidavit of service is filed, the filer has the option of paying the filing fee, not the filing fee, the postage fee, to the clerk, and for the clerk to mail out the postcards. If this situation is going to be used, the filer must pay for all the postage of all the respondents, and the clerk will mail out all the postcards, okay? Here it says postage and processing fee. However, right now the court is not charging a processing fee for the issuance of the postcard and mailing it. Right now, it's simply it's just the postage. So as far as e-filing after commencement, except as otherwise provided in subdivision A of this section, after commencement of an action wherein e-filing is authorized, documents may be electronically filed and electronically served by and upon parties who have consented thereto. Consent shall be obtained, and such e-filing shall be conducted as provided in 22 New York City Rules Section 202.5 BB2. Okay, and that is, we have that section here. And this is the rules for consent. Essentially, when you're commencing a case electronically, you're also consenting to a case. Subsequently, when you file a document for the first time, you're recording consent and accepting the terms and use of e-filing. Service of initiating documents we're going to get to next. E-filing an action after commencement. Oh, service of documents, my apologies. A person seeking to obtain personal jurisdiction over a person named as a party to an action specified in subdivision A of this section may serve the opposing party in hard copy or by electronic means if the opposing party agrees to accept such service in accordance with the CPLR of the New York City Civil Court Act. Okay, so essentially what this means is that parties have to be served in hard copy with the commencement document no matter what, unless because of this pandemic and some exceptions that businesses and agencies have made saying that they will accept service by email, then they may be served electronically. But really in no instance, especially right now as it applies to the housing court, no party can be served commencement papers via NYSEF. Okay, they may be served electronically outside of NYSEF or certainly in hard copy in paper by the way papers are being served now. And again, that's only the commencement documents. So that's how you're obtaining jurisdiction in a housing court case for electronically filed cases. Where an action is commenced by electronic filing, the original proof of service that's required in Section 409 of the Civil Court Act shall be filed with the clerk of the court in the county in which the action was commenced by filing it with the NYSEF site. Okay, and it's actually filing this proof of service that's going to prompt the postcard question and fee being paid. We're going to demonstrate that for you shortly. And service is deemed complete for the purposes of Section 410B of the New York City Civil Court Act upon receipt of the electronic proof of service by the NYSEF site. In a summary proceeding to recover possession of real property commenced electronically in accordance with this section, only the proof of service needs to be filed. Okay, so the initial e-filing of the notice of petition or signed order to show cause at the time of commencement of the action satisfies the requirement of 208.42H to return the original of those documents to the clerk of the court with its proof of service. So that's another big difference that's happening with e-filing now. So you're familiar that when the proof of service is coming in, it's coming in with the notice of petition or the signed order to show cause. That's not the case anymore. The order to show, and it was stated previously in the rules, when the petition and the notice of petition is filed or the petition with the signed order to show cause is filed, that satisfies the requirements of that document being filed. It doesn't have to be brought in again with the affidavit of service. Okay, service of documents after commencement of an e-filed action shall be made as provided in Section 202.5BF2 and 202.5BBC1 where applicable. And again, this is just going back to the consensual rules that you can make reference to. Basically, when a document is filed, if it has to be served, my apologies. When a document has to be served onto a non-participating party, the rules basically say there has to be an original signature on the document that's being served on to the participating parties. Not only that, if it's a document that's already been filed in NYSEF, you're serving a conformed copy with the filed stamp onto the respondent. And in any situation, if someone who does not participate in e-filing, if they're being served documents in hard copy, then you must file an affidavit of service. An affidavit of service is not required when service is done onto someone who participates in e-filing. So basically, when a document is electronically filed, it's considered served onto the participating parties. So if a document is filed and there's someone who does not participate in e-filing, then you have to accompany the filing with an affidavit of service. Okay. The document that gets served, again, it shall bear the full signatures of all signatories, and the proof of service shall be filed electronically. Almost summing it up here, but basically when a document is filed electronically pursuant to this section, it's the official record, okay? And the official record is stored by the NYSEF system. So the way you see the file, the electronic file in NYSEF, that is the official record. It's not anywhere else. The clerk or his or her designee may scan and e-file documents that were filed in hard copy in an action subject to e-filing, or maintain those documents in hard copy form. Basically saying if someone doesn't participate in e-filing and a document comes in, the clerk has the option of uploading it to conform it to make it part of the electronic record, or they can make a notation in NYSEF that they are going to retain the document in hard copy form. Lastly, and this is very important, this is a big difference between Supreme Court and what we're doing here in civil court. Parties participating in e-filing shall not be required to submit working copies of documents filed electronically. No working copies are going to be required at this point. Those are the rules. Sorry if it was a little choppy. Okay. So going back to the NYSEF homepage, we're going to first demonstrate what it is to look at a case. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the training system. The training system mirrors the live system. Not totally, because we've been doing a lot of testing in here. It's not what you see here will most likely be how you're going to see it in housing court when we start, but there's probably some changes that we haven't done in training that you'll see in live. Just a disclaimer. What I'm going to do is just log in under this lawyer account I created. It's housing lawyer. Okay, and I'm logging into the site. Just to first talk about logging in. If you are an attorney and you are registered to pay your dues with Attorney Online Services, your biannual dues, if you pay them electronically with Attorney Online Services, that username and password that you have will log you into NYSEF. So your username is your attorney registration number, and your password is whatever you have it set to. Those credentials will allow you to log into Attorney Online Services, into NYSEF, and to eTrack. Okay, so definitely those are three services with the same username and password you should definitely be utilizing for housing court, maintaining your court dates and looking at the NYSEF case and filing documents electronically. It's the same username and password. As an attorney, you can authorize, and it's in the consensual rules, you can give your paralegal or secretary or anyone that helps to file papers, you can give them your username and password, and they may file for you with your credentials. There are some attorneys who maybe don't feel comfortable doing that. They want their paralegal to have their own account. If that's the case, we can go to forms right here. And under Supreme Court forms, it's this very first form here, e-filing account user registration form. And essentially, it's something that gets filled out by the paralegal saying that they would like an account so that they may file on behalf of an attorney. You'll see this with paralegals, with secretaries. Perhaps marshal's offices will be using this, saying that they're filing on behalf of an attorney. So that's the EF1 form. Have them fill it out. It's basic information. And at the end of it, it gets notarized. Send the application to nicef@nycourts.gov, and the NYCEF team will create an account for this paralegal. Continuing with forms, once someone is an authorized agent and they're filing on behalf of an attorney, if they're logged in as an authorized agent, there's an additional form that needs to be filed along with the first filing in a case. Not the first filing as commencement, but the first filing that that authorized agent is doing. And it's something called a statement of authorization. We have statements of authorization as being documents, forms rather, EF12 through EF15, depending on who is authorizing who. If it's a single attorney and you're authorizing one single authorized agent, you're filling out the EF12 form. And this is a form you only have to fill out once. As an attorney, you're an attorney, you fill it out once, you give it to the paralegal, they keep it as a PDF on their computer. When they file for the first time into a case, let's say it's an answer, they'll file the answer and then they'll file the statement of authorization. And the statement of authorization is saying that this attorney authorizes this authorized agent to file documents on their behalf. So it kind of marries the two accounts between the attorney and the authorized agent. EF13, that's if it's a managing attorney is authorizing an individual filing agent. If you're a big firm, you're basically authorizing that this authorized agent can file on behalf of anyone who's in this firm. And then it goes to a single attorney authorizing an agent entity. That's something like if you have a service, you know, maybe a process server company that files all your proofs of service. You want to give them authorization to file these proofs of service on your behalf. And similarly, a large law firm that would authorize a large filing entity to file documents on your behalf. So depending on your situation, you're going to just choose which document is right for your situation. Again, you fill it out once. You give it to the authorized agent, and then they fill it out, they file it rather to any case. So those are really the only two accounts you have to be concerned with, your own as an attorney and then an authorized agent. There are no firm accounts, so it's every account there is in NYCEF is for one specific attorney. So, you know, Rosenberg and Estes, you only have, you know, you can't have just one account. Every attorney in that office will have their own NYCEF account. And that's just for clarity. Okay. So I'm going to go over to case search and just show you what it's like to search for a case. The search system is not very robust. Basically, if you know the index number, if you know the name of the party, that's how you're going to be able to search. If you want to limit your search, you can do so, narrowing your options by the county or the case type. You have those options as well. If anyone uses the public terminals with the UCMS, you know that it's very robust, the search menu. But for NYCEF, it's not really necessary. You know, you're just searching by index number, party name. One new functionality we added is the specialized index number format for housing court and actually all of civil court. And any court that will get that will get NYCEF in the future. All civil courts use UCMS, which is a case management system, and this is the format of all their index numbers statewide, beginning with a prefix, that's the case type, and ending with a suffix of the two-letter county code. So you'd be able to enter your index number there, searching for it. I'm going to just enter a number here. So I could load up a case for you and show you what it looks like, an electronically filed case. So my search results returned back one case because I entered the index number. It's a unique index number. And the index number is linkable. When I click on it, it's going to bring me to my document list that I'll click on in a minute. The next column is the e-filing status. That there's full participation in this case. That means that every party participates in e-filing. There's other statuses like waiting for index number or partial participation, meaning that not everyone has recorded representation, or awaiting index number, clearly waiting for an index number. Next column is for the caption. The caption is the short caption, so it's the first plaintiff or petitioner, first respondent. And next is the court and the case type in which this proceeding was commenced in. We see that it's a non-payment in the New York County Civil Court. Simply, I can go in here, I can record my consent into the case. If I want to record my consent and track the case, but I don't want to file a document yet, or if I want to file a document, I can click on it right here and go ahead and file documents. I'm not going to do it here. I'm going to do it later in another screen, but you do have the option here to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the index number to bring me to the document list. And this is what a NYSEF file is. At the very top, it has the index number, the county in which the case is commenced, and the next little gray box at the bottom kind of is similar to what's on the label on a file jacket. Just remember, there is no file jacket. There won't be a file on the shelf. You can't go to the clerk and requisition this file. You can be home and look at this file. So it's another really great benefit, especially now during the pandemic, keeping you safe, being able to look at these documents remotely. So as a filer, you have an option to email participating parties. If you wanted to email them, you can do so. It's just an option. It'll open up an email for you. It'll put all the recipients in there, the email addresses to everyone who participates in the case, and the subject line will have the caption of the case and the index number. So it's a useful tool. There's some narrow by options here in the document list. I'm going to get to them in a second, but I just want to show you what it looks like with these documents being filed. So here I see there's links to all of these documents. These are all PDFs of the documents that are filed. I can open up any of them and I can look at it and see the document. I can save it if I wanted to. I can print it. It's just like if you were in housing court looking at a document. So it's clicking on the PDF and you can save it. The first column is the NYSEF document number. The NYSEF document number is assigned in the order in which documents are filed. So clearly, petition was the first document filed, notice of petition was the second document filed, so on and so forth. So the second column, like I said, is the name of the document and a PDF to the document. The next column is who filed the document. It's the name of the filer. Their name is linkable. If I click on it, it's their information, where they work, and their email address, the date they filed it, and the date it was received. These dates can differ depending on if the document was returned for correction. So if the clerk returned the document as being defective and they needed it to be refiled, the date that was received would then be different than the date filed, because then the date filed would change to the date it was returned back to the clerk. Next is the status of the document. You see here that the status of these documents is processed. That means that the clerk has done everything or anything that needed to be done with it, or if nothing needed to be done with it at all, and the document is now part of not part of the record, it's automatically part of the record, but no further action needs to be taken by the clerk. Opposed to a document that has the status of pending, meaning that there's further action that the clerk needs to take. Maybe this order to show cause hasn't been signed by a judge yet. Maybe the clerk hasn't scheduled the return date. But when all of those steps are taken on the clerk's side, then the document would say processed. There's other statuses such as deleted, deleted by the court. If this document didn't belong in there, or those very few reasons in the CPLR, the document would be removed from the case record. Also, if the document was returned for correction, that the clerk reviewed it and found a defect, they would return it back to the filer, and in red, the status would say returned for correction. I can click on any of these NYSEF document numbers to view a little bit of the information on the filing. I see that it was a petition that was filed by this court, attorney, the date and time in which it was filed and received. if there was a fee that was paid, when it was paid, and what method in which it was paid. And at the point of filing, who receives an email notification of this document being filed. So really with the petition, it's the only filer that's getting notification is the attorney, in fact, who filed the petition. But we can see something like an answer that was filed by the respondent. If we look at the answer, we see that it was served on to the attorney for the petitioner and the respondent. I can go over to case detail, which will give me a little bit more information. It'll give me the property address and the full caption of the case. Then it breaks it down, petitioner and respondent. It'll give me the name of the attorney, okay, that's recorded as representing that party. And if there's any judgments, even though the judgments are found on the document list, NYSEF will also isolate those judgments on this case detail page, so you can review it here. If there were any comments made to this case, okay, the comments would be here. You know, just testing it, we tested this and added a comment. It's a comment by the clerk. Only the clerks are going to make comments to a case. They cannot be added by attorneys or filers, only by court employees or judges, anyone. Next, we have court notices. If for some reason the court needed to send out a notification to all the attorneys and make it part of the court record, once a court notice is made, not only is it on the document list, because we see it's document 6, but then a new tab is created where you can just see the court notices and correspondence that came out of the court directly to these parties. So we see here that was document number 6. So court notice is an easy way for the court to communicate to you if something was needed for a court date, or if something changed about an appearance, or if the judge wanted to communicate something to you and make it part of the record, you can anticipate receiving a court notice. So let's just revisit these narrow by options. Over here we have the first type. It's called the first drop down. It's called document type. When I select it, it's going to give me a list of documents. It's not going to be the list of any document that could be filed to a case. Document type drop-down is just going to give me a list of documents that have been filed to this particular case. So let's say there were 300 documents filed in this case. Very easily, by clicking on the drop-down, I can see whether an answer was filed or not, or if there were judgments, even though you could find a judgment in the other tab. Or if you want to just look at all the orders to show cause that were filed in the case, you can do it. If I select a document type and I narrow my document list, NYSEF will just isolate and find all the orders to show cause and put them on the screen. So here I only see that there was one order to show cause. And I know it's pretty important for Housing Court to be able to look at all of these OSCs very quickly. I'm going to clear the list. The next one is motion information. On this drop down, there is a, it will be a list of any motion, order to show cause, or ex parte application that was filed to the case. So easily you could just click on motion information, look at the drop down, look at if there was a motion sequence number assigned, you can click on it by just simply the motion sequence number or by the relief. Okay, so if I want to just see the motion for a stay, I can narrow my document list, and there it is again, the order to show cause. So I know that this was the document that was filed requesting the stay. Clearing my list again, not that it's super effective here because there's only 7 documents, but let's say there were hundreds of documents. Very easily, I can type in the document number that I want to look at. I can narrow my document list, and NYSEF will just isolate that one document that you want to look at. On a page, NYSEF can display up to 75 documents. After that, it goes to page 2, where it's documents 76 to 150, so on and so forth. Next is filed by. here you can look and see the name of every employee or every attorney or authorized agent who has filed a document to this case. So I can click on any person. I can narrow the document list, and I will see that this is a court employee who filed a court notice. Lastly, I think it speaks for itself, the date filed. You can do a search by date range to see what documents were filed within a particular date range. Also, we have here print document list. If I select it, a PDF is created of the document list. It makes it real nice with the caption on top, the county, the index number, when it was created, and just the PDF, just with the basic information about each document that was filed. Okay, and we could lastly use display document list with motion folders. So basically, if you didn't want to really look at, if there were many orders to show cause and you didn't want to scroll through the document list looking at affirmations and exhibits that would make it maybe look messy, you can select this option to display document list with motion folders, and it'll take all the motion related documents and kind of put them in a folder, make them disappear, so you can look at the file without those extra documents. So that's really how you navigate a file in NYSEF. What I'm going to do now is go into back into the main menu, and I want to show you what it's like to actually just go in and file a case. That's pretty important. So when you log in, you have the option here. It says File Documents. It's on your main page. It's also here on the left side for civil court. I'll click here for civil court, and I have a few options here. Start a new case, to file to an existing case, or to record consent into a case. For the purposes now, I'm going to start a case just to show you what it looks like. When I select it, at the very top, I have a status bar that lets me know where I am in my filing. I'm going to select my court, New York County Civil Court. And again, this is just for training, but really there's no other court that's going to be having, that's starting housing as of Monday, just New York City Civil Court, and other courts are to be determined at a later date. I'm going to select next. On the drop down, I have a list of case types here. These case types are based on the needs of the housing court. As soon as I selected my case type, NYSEF is asking me to enter the property address. So I've been using just whatever address. Sorry if you live at 123 Main Street. And then the address description. Okay, and again, we all know how important it is to have this information in here. Hopefully, in your office, the way you maintain information, if you can absolutely copy and paste into these fields. NYSEF allows you to, so there is the paste option. If you have the text on whatever program you use to generate your documents, just by all means keep that in mind, just to avoid any clerical mistakes or anything, just to make it easier for you to enter this information in. So I'm going to select next, and now we're at the parties section. Anyone familiar with the Supreme Court? It's basically the same. So for the most part, we have one petitioner and one respondent. Not that you're limited to that, just that if there's more than one petitioner, more than one respondent, you can select that, and NYSEF will allow for more lines for you to enter those additional petitioners or respondents. For each petitioner or respondent, we have separate fields. First, if it's an individual, for their first, middle, last name, and suffix, or if it's a business organization, just going to enter any old name. If there was an AKA, FKA, or any additional party name that you needed to add, because you want to make sure whatever you're entering here conforms with your petition and notice of petition. You have to match the caption up precisely. So I could click Add Other Name Status, and it opens up a field here where I can just enter other information. Next, for the respondent, you can go ahead and enter their name. Okay, and NYSEF is asking what their street address is. Most of the time, it's going to be the same address, so you can use the property address, or if it's a different address, okay, you can enter it here. Now next, so this is where the magic happens on the documents page. This is where you're uploading your documents. So just to talk a little bit about the documents that are acceptable for filing, all documents that are filed to NYSEF must be in PDF or PDF-A format. Only difference is PDF-A is text searchable. The document cannot exceed 100 megabytes. The document has to be at least 200 DPI, that's dot per inch. These requirements are on our NYSEF homepage. The document cannot be encrypted. It cannot be password protected. You cannot make items linkable in these documents, and that's for security purposes. So it has to be a PDF free of those restrictions. And again, that's on the NYSEF homepage. So now NYSEF is saying, okay, you're adding a commencement document to your filing. So here it's saying, well, what are you filing? NYSEF is smart. It knows you're commencing a case. So what are you filing in the first instance? It's going to be the petition. There's no other document that you're really going to file that commences the case, at least with this number one document. So document number one is the petition. It's always the petition. I'm going to click Browse. Browse opens up a folder on my computer. And I can go to my folder where I have my PDFs saved, and I can select my non-payment petition. Next, if there's additional document information, a few more words to describe the document. It's not required. There's no red asterisk. It's just there for you. Additional document information, special instructions to the court or judge. These fields are always there. You can utilize them or not. Not so much special instructions. I don't really see it being used, but definitely additional document information. If you wanted to specify, like if it was a partial discontinuance, if you wanted to indicate in the additional document information who the discontinuance was for, or if it's an answer and it's an answer as to only one respondent, you can enter it there. If it's an exhibit, you certainly want to use that additional document information field to describe the exhibit, and just any way that you deem it necessary. So that's the additional document information field. Next, NYSEF is going to ask you, and is always going to ask you, this question. Does the document contain confidential personal information as defined in the rules? These are the rules for the civil court. It's linkable. You can look at it. You really only need to look at it once. But I think we're all familiar with confidential personal information and the redaction rule. Essentially, there's certain information that has to be redacted because civil court records are public records. You do not want to make certain information available to the public, such as someone's social security number, their birth date, the name of a minor, bank account information, tax ID information, so on and so forth as defined in this section. Read it once. Obviously, you know, redaction it's important to read. Redaction means to either white out or black out certain information, only leaving a portion of the information viewable. Like in a minor's name, you would redact their entire name except for the first letter of their first and last name. Social security number, everything except for the last 4 digits. Birth date, the entire birth date except for the year, so on and so forth. Read it once. If the document does contain confidential personal information, and in housing court, I rarely see it that it does, but if it did, you would indicate that yes, the document does contain confidential personal information, but it's either been redacted, meaning that you whited it out or blacked it out pursuant to the rule, or you left it unredacted because you're seeking a remedy under one of these sections, which basically says that you had to file it unredacted because the court needed to see this information in order to adjudicate the matter and to see the document in its entirety, that it was necessary, or that you're seeking to have the document sealed, or just read the section. Lastly, if you filed the document unredacted as required pursuant to a specific rule or law outside of something we could even think of. So if there was, you know, a civil rights law or something that says you had to file it unredacted, you would indicate that's in this section here. But NYSEF, again, is always going to ask you, it always defaults to no, not defaults to no, it doesn't default to no. You'll have to select yes or no and continue with your filing. Next, NYSEF is asking us, basically saying, hey, based on the fact that you're filing a petition, you have one other document that you need to file. So you can't just file a petition. You can't make a PDF of your petition and notice of petition together. They have to be two separate documents. You want to make sure you have your petition as one PDF and your notice of petition as one PDF. You don't want to take a bunch of documents and create one PDF of it and upload it as one PDF. That's not acceptable in NYSEF standards or by the court standards, especially for a judge that has to navigate and look at these documents electronically. For them to scroll up and down it is not really fair to the judge. So you really want to make sure if you're filing documents, and especially in this situation where you're forced to file them as separate documents. So here on the drop down, I see here that my only other option is to file a notice of petition or an order to show cause proposed. Well, I'm going to say I'm filing a notice of petition. Again, I'm going to browse on my computer and upload my notice of petition. And again, these fields are available to you. Not that they're required, it's just if there is additional information. The red asterisk asking about the confidential personal information, you would indicate it here. And you can continue if there is a document 3. If not, you can continue. If there's more than document 3, you can add another document. For the purpose of this training, I'm just doing a petition and notice of petition. So now we're going to get to the payment method. Right now, NYSEF accepts credit cards, Visa, MasterCard, American Express. We have this, just enter any old number. This is in training, so it doesn't even matter. Security code, address. NYSEF does not save your credit card information. It will not save it. It does not save it. For security purposes, every time a fee is paid, you must enter the credit card information all over again. The expiration date, the security code. Going forward, you know, it's really for security purposes. There's other options here. There's fee already paid. These are for very rare instances. And because housing court it's not a fee heavy court like Supreme or surrogates court, sometimes if you'll see that even with consensual, it's not the case, but if let's say there was a failure with the site and it was met with the statute of limitations and a document had to get filed or a case had to get commenced that day and NYSEF wasn't working, then the fee can be paid in person to commence the action, and then later on the filer can upload the case into NYSEF. So they would use the situation that the fee was already paid, entering the information that's on their receipt. But because in housing court there's very little fees, it's consensual, meaning that the case may be commenced electronically. There's really no heavy requirement for a document to come in electronically. The fee already paid option is probably rarely going to get used in housing court. Something you may see more of, and something that you definitely need to become familiar with depending on your firm and how you operate, is the no fee option. On the prior page, along with the petition and notice of petition, I would have had to file as document number 3, the no fee authorization form. It's a document name. It just says no fee authorization. And essentially, it would be the letter from your agency saying that you're a fee exempt. So like NYCHA, you're a fee exempt agency. You'd have to upload something every single time to have the fee waived for your commencement. For pro bonos or any other exception, if there was a fee waiver order, that would be the no fee authorization that would get uploaded on the prior page that would allow the filer to bypass entering credit card information or that the fee was already paid. When the no fee option is selected, it goes to a special list on the clerk side that they review to see if these fees are in fact waived by the filer. So, you know, only use it if you are fee exempt. So I'm going to pay by credit card and select next. Okay, and now I'm at the review and filing page. Basically, it's speak now or forever hold your peace. You cannot change anything once you submit this information. You cannot change anything. Does it mean that it can't be changed? No, it means the clerk can change it. But as far as you as a filer, you cannot change any of this information once you submit it. So go over it, scrutinize it, make sure everything is spelled correctly, that the address is correct. You can click on your PDFs to review it, your credit card method. If you needed to add an attorney file number, you can do it here. There's edit buttons next to all of these boxes. You can select on edit document, edit parties, edit payment, if any of it needs to be changed. Next is the filing acknowledgement. There is some sort of filing acknowledgement with every filing that you do. And essentially you are saying that you understand, unless this case is sealed, that it's public record. So this document, this file, as soon as you file it, it is viewable to the public. As soon as you click file documents, even before it's reviewed by a clerk, it's viewable by the public. All documents that are uploaded, you know, do not contain viruses, that you've tested them and none were found. And 3 and 4 applies to the confidential personal information as it's stated in General Business Law 399 DDD6 that talks about the statutory exceptions for Social Security numbers being marked confidential, and just the rules on confidential personal information and redaction as it applies to the civil court. So you're going to go ahead, mark that you acknowledge. You can't file without marking the filing acknowledgement, and you'll go ahead and file your documents. The next page is the thank you for filing page. You want to make sure you're at this page to know for sure that your documents have been filed. Okay, thank you for filing electronically. So your documents are successfully received. You will receive at this point an email letting you know that the court has received the documents. On the court side, the court receives a notification that this document has come in. It'll go straight to the cashier for them to process your $45, to assign the index number and to schedule it into their case management system. Once an index number is assigned, which we saw in the rules is the same day or the next business day, an index number will be assigned. You will receive a subsequent email with the index number letting you know the index number has been assigned to this case. And going forward, you'll receive emails for anything that gets filed into this case, any update that gets made to the case, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to just go ahead and view the case here just to see what we've done. So we see here at the very top, it says index number not assigned. The status here is waiting for the index number. Obviously, that's the next thing that needs to be done. We see here as far as the status that it's pending and that these documents are filed. I can click on them to show that they are they're filed in the court. However, they're still awaiting the index number at the top. Next is the OCR notation, optical character recognition, scan in progress, check back in 15 minutes. So you might get a notification that a document's been filed. You'll go over to NYSIF to try to look at it, and it says that it's not viewable at this time. You have to wait 15 minutes after a document is filed in order to view it. And that's because every document that gets uploaded to NYSIF undergoes something called a optical character recognition scan, meaning that if the document is, all the documents are PDF, NYSIF turns them into text searchable PDFs. And while it's scanning the document to make it text searchable, it's also searching for the social security number, if there is one, and that it hasn't been redacted. If the system detects that there is a social security number, it will automatically redact it and send a notice to the filer saying that there was a possible social security number that's been administratively redacted. If that's the situation, and it was not, in fact, a social security number that was there, maybe it was a file number and it looked like a social security number, there's simple instructions on how to have that redaction reversed. And again, this OCR is a work in progress. It's fairly new to the NYSIF site. I think we could all understand the need for it to ensure that these documents do not contain social security numbers as public record. So, if you get something saying that it was administratively redacted and in fact that it wasn't, follow the instructions, the clerk takes care of it immediately. So that's as far as filing, commencing a case. What I want to show now is the postcard procedure that we talked about in the rules when an affidavit of service is filed, along with what it looks like to file to an existing case. So what this screen is going to look like. So back at the NYSIF homepage, I said that I was filing to an existing case. So the screen looks a little different now because NYSIF wants to know, well, what's the index number that you're filing to? So I'm just going to enter this index number. This is all test dummy information and selecting the court. And NYSIF wants to know, are you filing a motion document? So this is a little different. If anyone is using the Supreme Court e-filing, it's more of a robust menu of motion documents, non-motion documents. It's a simple yes or no. Are you filing a motion document, yes or no? If you say yes, you have a few options. Are you filing a motion, an OSC, an ex parte application? Are you filing a cross motion? Or are you filing a document that relates to one of those? Again, it's a little more simplified than what you see on the Supreme Court menu. But we're going to say no because we're filing just the proof of service. This is where you would find, application for judgment, warrant requisition, any stipulations that you want to file not related to an OSC would go here, answers, so on and so forth. So I'm going to say no. And go to the next page. Now, NYSIF sees that I am filing to a case that I've never filed to before. So NYSIF saying, hey, who do you represent? Well, I represent the petitioner, let's say. Okay, the respondent has yet recorded consent in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and record consent. NYSIF didn't ask this when we commenced our case, and that's because automatically you're consenting to NYSIF when you're commencing electronically. I'm going to go ahead and record my consent. So now it's saying document 1, what is the main document that you're filing? When we filed before, it said choose your commencement document, but now it's saying add your main document. So when I click on the drop down, you see that there is a long list of documents that may be filed to this case as a non-motion document. And again, this is because it's not initiating a case. It's filing to a case, so there's definitely more options. So I'm going to say that I'm filing the proof of service of the petition and notice of petition. Please be sure that you're selecting this. At this time, I'm unsure if it's going to say proof of service of petition, notice of petition, or affidavit of service of petition and notice of petition. But either one of the documents have to be selected if you're filing the proof of service or the affidavit of service of the petition and notice of petition. This is the document type that is going to prompt NYSIF to ask you about the postcard. Okay? I'm going to browse on my computer and find my affidavit of service. If it's for, you can say, if it was the proof of service, let's say there's 3 affidavits of service, you can include all 3 affidavits of service and say, for all respondents, right? Or if it was just for one respondent, or whatever it is, you can indicate it here, or you can file them as separate PDFs. But for here, I'm just going to say, because it was only one respondent, I think, I'm just going to leave it blank. And no, this document does not contain confidential personal information. And I'm going to click next. So like I mentioned in the rules, when you select that you want to pay the fee for the postage, it's going to be to all the respondents, and it's 35 cents. We didn't get to that screen yet, but it's 35 cents per respondent. That's the cost of a postcard, to mail the postcard. So it's just the postage that you're paying for. You're not paying for additional fees. If there's 2 respondents, it's going to be 70 cents, and NYSEF is going to collect the fee the same way fees were collected when we did the petition and the notice of petition. It's taking a little bit of time here. What happens is, though, on the clerk side, when the proof of service is filed, this document is routed to a clerk, or it's presented to a clerk on like a virtual it's basically like a virtual stack of papers that the clerk reviews, and they'll see that you've requested the, get to this page, let's just go back to it now. So NYSEF is basically saying, as per the rules, a stamped postcard containing written notice addressed to each respondent must be submitted to the clerk. In lieu of this submission, you may choose to have the court generate and mail the postcard to all respondents. If you choose this option, the following charges will be added to this filing. And essentially, it's 35 cents per respondent. And right now, because there's one respondent in this case, it's 35 cents. Would you like the court to generate and mail postcards to all respondents in the proceeding and agree to the charges above? So it's not, it's all or nothing, basically. You want them to create the postcards for all the respondents or for none of the respondents. If you don't want postcards, you're responsible for providing the postcards to the clerk. And during this time of the pandemic and entry into the courthouse, really try to use this option. So I'm going to go ahead and click yes. And again, NYSEF is asking for my credit card information. Just fill in any old. Okay. And I'm paying the fee. Okay, so now, again, there's the filing acknowledgement. Okay, I understand the following. And, you know, the filing acknowledgement is part of every filing. I'm going to go ahead and file my documents. So now this document is being routed to a clerk who will accept your proof of service for filing and generate the postcard and mail it out based on these series of actions. Okay. The last thing I want to show you before we open it up is as a filer, you have this link here called My Cases/Appeals. So I'm going to click on it, and basically anytime I file a case, anytime I've filed a document, or I've simply recorded consent into a case, I can now find this case on my list of cases. When a case is over, you're not removed from it. You'll always be a recorded party into this case. So in the beginning, you might start with 1 page, 2 page. You might find that in 5 years, you have 20 pages of cases. Well, if that's the situation, we do have the narrow options where you can narrow and only view perhaps your active cases, or you just want to see cases in a particular court. You can really limit the cases here, but just because a case is over, it's not a basis for having your name removed from a case so that it no longer appears here. Okay? So you do have some narrow by options here. And it just has a list of all these cases. I have a bunch of cases here. The court hasn't assigned an index number to yet. You can see here, if an index number is not assigned, you do not have the option to file documents to this case. That's because you cannot file documents to a case that has no index number. You have to wait for an index number to be assigned in order to file new documents to the case. I see here one of these index numbers, there's a red asterisk. The red asterisk on this screen means that there is a document that was returned for correction on this case. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at it and see what's going on here. This case is one document that's been returned for correction. Click on the refile document link that's located under the document. So let's see here. Oh, I see that I filed an affidavit of service and the clerk returned it for correction. Okay, so that's one of those statuses. So in this situation, what do? I click on refile document, and this link is only here if you were the original filer. So if you work for a law firm and one attorney filed something that got returned for correction, the only person that can file it is that attorney who filed it in the first instance. So when the clerk sends a document back to you, this is the only thing that you can change in a case, is the PDF that was uploaded. So I can go ahead and browse and find my updated affidavit of service. If I needed to update any of the information, whether the document contains confidential personal information or not, and I'm going to go ahead and refile the document. So just to show you what it looks like, you get an email notification when a document was returned for correction, but you can also see it with the red asterisk on your case list. I see here that the document now is undergoing an optical character recognition scan, and the indication of it being corrected means that when you see corrected, that means that a document was returned for correction and has been refiled, so that the filer corrected their filing, not that the court deemed it corrected. It just means that it was a refiled document. Okay, I'm going to go back to the NYSEF homepage, and I have a link here at the bottom. It says contact us. We are the NYSEF Resource Center. We're a very small group. We have a few employees of the civil court that are helping us with implementation and rollout and support of NYSEF in the housing court. We will make their information available to you on the website as it becomes established. You can always send an email to us at the NYSEF Resource Center. Our email address is nysef@nycourts.gov. As we're staggering back into work and, as the phases are being rolled out, our phones may be on, they may be off, but you can try calling in the first instance. If not, leave us an email. We'll get back to you. We're only available 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Even, as we answer emails and everything, this is where we're available. Really, anything technical is outside of business hours. You want to contact that phone number. But technical problems, as far as having questions for NYSEF, doesn't constitute an emergency technical issue. So just please try to shoot us an email, and we'll get back to you. That concludes our demonstration. I would like for you all to take your phones off of